Welcome to Stories for Wonderful Children. I'm Dan Wendelin, your host and storyteller. Years ago, I began recording the bedtime stories I told my children every night. Now, we would like to share those stories with you. I hope you enjoy my Stories for Wonderful Children.
Well, one night there was a storm, and it was an unusually severe storm. There was lots of wind, lots of rain, and most importantly for our story, lots of lightning. Well, during this storm, it rained so hard that a colony of ants had their home sort of flooded because it was raining so hard. And so they had to, in order to get away from the water underground, they had to come up out of the ground. And then they sort of scurried around, running from blade of grass to blade of grass, trying to find a place that was up out of the water. And one particular ant name was a smell.
Smell?
No, like her, in ant language, ants talk through smells instead of through sounds. So the ants...
Smells?
Right, the ant's name was a smell.
Smell?
Yeah, and so it's hard for me to tell you because I can't tell you a smell. But this ant's name was a smell that sort of smelled a little bit like a cross between mint and cinnamon. But since it's sort of awkward for me to say a smell between mint and cinnamon every time I'm talking about this ant, we'll just call her Scent. Okay?
Yes.
So that's the name we're going to call her. But really, just remember that her name in ant language is a smell that's sort of, if you sniffed, would sort of remind you of a cross between mint and cinnamon. Well, Scent finally found a wall to climb up, and she climbed up it. She climbed up and up and up, and then she found a roof, and she thought that she would climb out onto the roof and find a shingle to crawl under, where she could stay dry until the rain stopped. And so she crawled up onto the roof, and it was raining really hard, so it was hard for her to find a good shingle. She thought maybe up towards the top of the roof she could find one that had maybe a crack in it or a little gap she could crawl under. And as she climbed up the roof, one of those big bolts of lightning came down, and it zapped right the spot she was at on the roof. Now normally, when lightning hits something, it just destroys it. But something very strange happened with Scent. The lightning did not kill her. It just knocked her out. And when she woke up, it was several hours later, and she was laying there, and she felt very strange indeed. Well, she lay there resting for a moment, trying to figure out what had happened. And then she noticed that the rain had stopped, so she decided to go back down to the colony. And so she started to climb down the roof, and she was about to climb over onto the wall when a bird swooped down, trying to make a lunch out of her. And she was so startled that she fell off the wall, and she was falling towards the ground, and she was probably going to be okay, because ants can fall from a very high distance and be okay. And she was worried more about the bird than the fall, because the bird was chasing her down. And she thought, okay, as soon as I hit, I've got to find something to hide under. As soon as I hit, I've got to find something to hide under. As soon as I hit, I've got to hide. And then she found that she was not falling anymore. She was moving. She was flying. Wait a minute, she thought, I can't fly, but she was flying. She zipped around just above the ground, zipped past several bushes and under a leaf, and stopped. She heard the bird flying around overhead, and then it went away. She thought, did I really do that? She walked out from the leaf, and she jumped into the air, and sure enough, she flew up into the sky. She thought, I'm a flying ant. This is cool. So she flew down to where her home was, and she saw some of her friends there, and she said, look at this. And she showed them how she could fly, how she could hover and float and fling herself through the air. They said, wow, how'd that happen? She said, I don't know. I was climbing up on the roof in the storm, and all of a sudden, something happened, and now I can fly. It's really strange. They said, that is neat. They took her in and took her for an audience with the queen of the colony. And the queen said, this is a useful ability indeed. She said, I hereby name you Chief Scout. And from then on, Scent's job was to fly over the grass looking for things that were good to eat, like dropped ice cream and candy and suckers and leftovers from people's picnics, French fries. Really, ants will eat just about anything. And when she found one, she would stop. She would get down on the ground and she would start to put little drops of scent along the ground, and she would walk back to the colony, putting a little dot of scent every few steps. When she got back to the colony, she said, okay, everybody follow my scent trail, and it'll lead you to whatever it was she'd found that day, French fry or ice cream. And the ants would follow her scent trail, and they would bring back lots of food. Well, this worked so well that her colony was soon growing and expanding and prospering. She thought, oh, this is wonderful. Everyone had plenty to eat, and she also would fly back and forth over the workers and keep an eye out for birds and for other ants. Well, the colony grew so much that one day it was time for it to divide, and for there to be a new colony. And the queen decided that instead of laying an egg for a new queen, she was going to work some special ant magic. And so she did. She brought scent in, and she rubbed her antenna all over her, and then she had scent turn around 3 times, and then she had her stand on her head, and then she had her roll over on her back, and then she said some special ant words, which, because ants communicate in smells, the words sort of smelled like watermelon, and then sort of smelled like roast beef, and then sort of smelled like armpits, and then sort of smelled like roses, and then sort of smelled like 3-day-old grease, and then sort of smelled like cat poop, and then sort of smelled like fresh chocolate chip cookies, which was a very long sentence of smells. And then, once again, scent felt sort of funny and tingly all over, and the queen said, now you are a new queen. You must take the extra ants in the colony and lead them to a new home. Well, Scent's old colony was in the backyard of a house, and Scent, with her new queen wings, because ant queens have wings, they're the only ants that can fly. They just fly once in their lives when they go to a new colony. She flew out and over the house and into the front yard, and her new colony all followed her, and there they dug a hole, and they dug a new colony. And Scent ruled well, and her colony prospered, and her fame spread far and wide as Scent, the flying ant.
Thanks for listening to Stories for Wonderful Children. I created today's story, but questions and witty commentary were supplied by my children. The music was created by Brandon Thompson. If you enjoy the show, please tell someone about it or leave a review on your podcast provider. Our website is storiesforwonderfulchildren.com, and you can also find us on most social media. I'm Dan Wendelin, reminding you to tell someone you love a story.